You're listening to One Lowry, Many Stories, a special podcast series celebrating Lowry turns 25 in partnership with the University of Salford and commissioned by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. The 1980s, Salford docks. Industrial decline had transformed the area around the ship canal, leaving underused land and empty spaces. While some viewed it as neglected, others saw the potential to redefine Salford. Lowry, now a world-known art centre, was born from Salford leaders' resolve to bring world-class art to a community struggling with deprivation. This is the beginning of Lowry, how determination took an impossible dream into a reality that continues to inspire 25 years later.
I'm Councillor Bill Hines. Out of the 41 years I've been on the council, I've only done 1 year on the backbenches, and I became the leader after 4 years. And when we were developing the quays at that time, we identified this plot of land, which was barren, by the way. There was nothing about it. It was just wild, next to the river, next to the canal. And they put this in an art centre.
Since the 80s, Salford Quays have become a desolate relic of its industrial past. Derelict warehouses and stagnant canal basins stood as a reminder of what once was. But council leader Bill Hines saw a future in this forgotten corner. Hines and his team set their sights on a grander ambition, a state-of-the-art theatre and arts complex that would become the Lowry.
My name's Felicity Goody. I led the team that created, funded, designed, built, opened, stabilised the Lowry. It changed my life, and I hope it changed a lot of other people's lives too. The beginning really of Lowry was when the docks was on the brink of closure, and there was this enormous, really stinking wasteland, because Salford docks was not like London docks or Albert docks in Liverpool. There were no grand buildings. There was really very little here, apart from warehouses, dereliction, and really stinking basins at the head of the canal. And the water bubbled, literally, with horrible stuff coming up from below. 100 years of industrial effluent. I mean, it really was very badly contaminated. And it was huge, and it was stuck in the middle of this community called Salford.
Felicity Goody, a former BBC journalist, was tasked to lead the lottery bid and overcame sceptics. Salford, that dirty old town, had long become known for poverty and despair. The idea to build an arts venue there was never going to take off, was it? You've not met Felicity and Bill.
I was being interviewed in the wild here on the BBC radio, and they always wanted to interview you when it was outside. And it was pouring down with rain and the wind blowing. And if you've ever been on the quays, when the wind blows, by God, you know it. I said, well, we will still be looking for a state-of-the-art theatre. And then we got the lottery. And therefore, this was in 1995. And therefore, we started to work to achieve the Lowry.
In 1995, the arrival of National Lottery funding was a golden ticket. It was more than a life jacket, but put wind in the sails of Salford towards its dream. Goody put together a strong team made up of a Salford actor turned Hollywood star, a Salford artist who had painted the Pope, and a world-famous architect.
When we were bidding for Lowry, for the lottery money, we were trying to influence people. And one of the people we wanted to influence was the chairman of the Arts Council then, a man called Lord Gowrie, Grey Gowrie. And we wangled our way into a charity performance, a ballet performance being held at the Palace Theatre, where Gowrie was the guest of honour. And it was a black tie event in those days. Well, Bill wasn't going to wear a black tie, no way. So after the performance, we went to the dinner. And our friends had been very kind who'd been organising this charity dinner, because they sat me on one side of him and Bill on the other side. So he chatted away a little bit to me, and then he obviously felt he ought to say something to Bill. So he turned to Bill. Well, Gowrie is about 6 foot, 2 or 3, or was. Bill is a lot shorter. So he sort of looked down on Bill, and Bill wasn't sitting there in black tie. And was struggling clearly to say something. So he then said, have you ever been to a performance like this before? Implying that Bill probably had never been inside a theatre, never mind to a ballet before. And Bill leaned back, and I grinned from ear to ear and waited for the fun. And Bill then embarked on an analysis of this production as opposed to the choreography of so-and-so and so-and-so and all the other many productions he'd seen. Of course, what Gary didn't know was that Bill was an absolute expert on ballet, far more so than Lord Gary. His face was an absolute picture.
Bill's not wanting to wear a black tie to the event, refusing to conform to enjoy the arts and defying prejudice in the process. An anecdote that mirrors the ethos of Lowry.
From my point of view, obviously it was going to be good for the economy and certainly Salford. So it was important for the economy. But for me, it was more important to bring the arts to people, because at the end of the day, most of the arts are from working class people. The people that participate in them are working class. But you wouldn't think so at times. It's like, and I used to use this word, people would say, well, it's not for the likes of us, what the arts mean. But it should be and does. And I would like to see people talking about the ballet and the opera in the pubs, like they talk about football and boxing and cricket and all the rest of sport. I'd like to see them talking about the arts in the same vein.
Bill said it's got to be absolutely international in excellence, but deeply rooted in its community. And that was the driving force. We were determined to do that from day one. My favourite story really about Larry, we'd been open about, a couple of years or so. I was walking through one of our bars one evening and I spied 3 ladies from off the Oddsall estate. Now, the Oddsall estate is just opposite us, and it was a place where we'd worked very hard, and I knew these 3 ladies, and I knew for a fact that they'd never been to a theatre before or an art gallery, and certainly never a ballet before we built Lowry. And I just walked past them, and as I walked past them, I heard them solemnly comparing the relative merits of the Bolshoi, the Kirov, and Paris Opera Ballet, the 3 greatest ballet companies in the world. And they were doing so very knowledgeably. And they'd seen all 3 at Lowry.
Fundamental to Lowry's design was accessibility. The building, with its wide public space and a backstage village for touring companies, was designed to welcome everyone from Pendleton to Paris.
We called it Lowry because it was going to be the home of the Lowry collection. Somebody'd had the wit, in fact, it was the buying committee, a bunch of local councillors, had the wit to buy Lowrys when nobody else was buying them, when they were affordable, of course. And that's how they amassed this astonishing collection. And so when we were thinking about, well, what are we going to put in this thing that we're going to build on the quays? The first thing that came to everybody's mind was, well, we've got to create a home for the Lowry collection. And so that was the core of it, really, the art galleries. And that was always going to be free for the public because it had been bought for the public by the council, and it was going to remain free for the public. And it is to this day. And the whole building was designed by our brilliant architect, Michael Wilford, to encourage people to explore around the building. Within the heart of the building, we also designed a backstage village. We have had the likes of the Kirov, the Bolshoi, the Paris Opera Ballet, legendary names of absolutely incredible artists. And so we created a backstage village, and it was a huge success from day one, because what it meant was that visiting companies came here, were treated better than they were treated anywhere else, and said, boy, we'd like to go back there, thank you very much. That we were trying to say to local people, you can have the best, and you can have it here, in your backyard.
In 2000, the road to opening wasn't without speed bumps. Salford's council, under Hyde's leadership and with Chief Executive John Willis, had to bankroll the project when funds were running low. Goody headed to London with the bid. Persistence paid off.
We then had to make a final submission to these combined lottery bodies, and we went to London to make this submission. And after we'd made all our presentations and so forth, we went back to the hotel where we were staying and hung around the telephone. And eventually, after about 2 hours, the telephone rang and we'd won the lottery. We'd won £68 million. And, well, you can imagine, we were cock-a-hoop. So John Willis, the chief exec, said, right, we're going to celebrate. We deserve a bottle of champagne. So he marched us across the road from our little hotel. And I think it was the Savoy or somewhere. I've forgotten where it was. It was one of these very, very expensive hotels. And we sailed in with John saying, champagne. He's not a bit like that. He's actually a very mild-mannered man normally. But we were absolutely high on this. And I tapped John on the shoulder. I said, John, I think they're throwing us out. And he said, what do you mean they're throwing us out? I said, you haven't got any ties on. You're not allowed in here if you haven't got a tie. And when we were coming home on the train afterwards, still high as kites. So we all sat down, we had this meal, and of course we were a bit raucous. And afterwards, John went up to say thank you to the ladies who'd served us, who were sitting at the back of the carriage. And he said, I'm sorry we've been a bit noisy, he said, but we're terribly excited. We've just won the lottery. We've won £68 million.
Lowry's opening was officiated by the Queen, a regal seal for what was a royal occasion. Against the doubters, the funding minefield, the cultural elitists, they'd done it. Salford would never be the same again. The quays were now a catalyst for regeneration. Next came Media City, and with it private investors pouring billions into an area that had been barren just a decade earlier.
It was a poor area anyway, technically. But again, what made it worse was the change of employment. You know, the docks itself going, mills going, engineering going, all the mining going, all the traditional works died. What the Lowry has done is acted as a catalyst for all what you look around now. There was nothing like these buildings, and we didn't have the BBC, we didn't have the War Museum across the river there, and all the other sides of the development that's taking place. And again, there's more people now working in this area than ever was on the docks.
It was about giving people real hope and aspiration and saying, you too can have the very, very best. But, yeah, people thought we were bonkers and told us so to our faces. And I don't think we'll ever forget the night we were talking to a bunch of local people, again from the Oddsall estate in the local school, and explaining why we thought this was a good idea. We're in the school one evening and a lady stood up and she said, well, I may be poor, but I don't want my kids to be poor, and I think this could mean a different future for them. Well, it brought tears to our eyes. And the local people were absolutely wonderful. Once they clocked it, once they realised that we weren't completely off our rockers, they really got behind us. And, you know, when we just opened, I'd stopped for a glass of water, I think, or something. It was quite early in the day, and I was standing beside, there was a bloke standing next to me, and he turned around to me and said, you know, this is my local now. And he was again off one of the estates. I think we felt more proud of the support we got from the local people than almost anything else.
Lowry has reshaped Salford's identity. It was a stage for locals to celebrate their resilience, a stage for them to welcome the world, a stage that was theirs. It's a beacon of defiance and dreams that houses a spirit of community pride, a metaphor of what you can achieve against the odds, an inspiration for all. This embodied by the entire team behind the creation of the Lowry.
The hardship that was faced and survived by the people of Salford has informed the spirit of the people of Salford. They are very tough. Nobody wants to go back to the bad old days, but they're very proud of where they've come from and through. And it was that grit and determination which got us the Lowry. I hope embraced the local community as it was. But I'm talking about the core community of Salford. There was an anniversary of the publication of a book called The Ragged-Trousered Philanthropist. And it was a book about the hunger marches between the wars. We got two of our Salford patrons, our Salford lads, Albert Finney and Robert Powell to read extracts together from this book. And it was held in the Peel Hall, and it was aimed at local people. They were reading, and it was packed, absolutely packed. And Robert, at one point, he just stopped reading, and he just described how the leader of one of the hunger marches had been beaten up and arrested and taken off to prison. And he paused, and he looked up, and he said, "And that man is with us tonight." Well, the hairs on the back of our necks stood up. And this ancient old man stood up from the audience. And the whole place just erupted in applause.
Well, it seemed like yesterday, really. It's gone that quick. Well, I don't want to talk about my achievements because, again, I'm so, I've never really sought any greatness for myself. It's about people, and it's about people working together as a team. But outside of keeping the unity of the group, which I led, the most important, if you want to ask me that question, it was the Lowry. It was the Lowry. Because I'm just looking around and you think, good God. And I keep remembering that day when I was doing that interview. And it's, just looking around now and you feel it. Because we didn't build the quays for 5 years, 10 years. We built it for 50, 100, 150 years and progress it that way. And that's important to me when I'm dead and gone.
I think they'll say that the Lowry was absolutely ahead of its time. It was visionary. It recognised that an arts-based project, provided it was really exceptional, could unlock opportunity, and both in terms of economic and social benefit, but as if not more important, in people's perceptions. So it really has transformed people's lives locally in a very direct sense, particularly young people's lives. They've worked to create a marvellous school on the Quay site. So it's been an enormous influence in this area. But as I say, the real benefit, of course, of Lowry has been that it unlocked so much more investment, so much more interest. And it's enabled us to create Media City, this concept where people live, work, play, and which in turn has influenced the expansion, huge expansion of the creative industries across the north of England. So it's been a marvellous ripple effect from very small beginnings.
Lowry stands as a testament to courage and vision. It's a tale of how determination and dreams can take a rain-soaked, long-neglected waterfront and turn it into a cultural cornerstone that the world visits. One that local people can be proud of.
Get involved, learn, don't be afraid, and you'll start to enjoy it. But it is for the working class. It's not just for working people, it's working class. And that's what it's about. And I'm proud to belong to the working class.
One Lowry, Many Stories was commissioned by the National Lottery Heritage Fund in partnership with the University of Salford. We'd like to thank the many people interviewed for this series, from those involved in our inception to performers, artists, visitors, staff, volunteers and local residents. This is just one of 4 commissions for Lowry Turns 25. Please find the others at thelowry.com.
Where the good times go and what's to show? As you see 25 years blur into one. Where the memories live? What if I said what if? You could press rewind back in time to what is gone. When was the first time you stepped inside the building? What was your highlight, your most life-affirming feeling? So many memories echo through the walls. So many untold stories waiting to